Hello, fifth grade. I hope you're doing well. And we're starting out a new week. Today's reading is for Monday, the 27th. And I'm going to start on page 38, and we're going to read for about 20 to 25 minutes for today. I'm on page 38 again. I'm sorry, I looked at that number wrong. Excuse me, we are on number 58. 5-8. Thursday, the 10th of December, 1942. Dear Kitty, Mr. Van Don used to be in the meat, sausage, and spice business. It was because of his knowledge of this trade that he was taken on in Daddy's business. Now he is showing the sausage side of himself, which for us is by no means disagreeable. We had ordered a lot of meat, under the counter, of course, that means kind of in secret, for preserving in case we should come upon hard times. It was fun to watch first the way that pieces of meat went through the mincer 2 or 3 times, then how all the accompanying ingredients were mixed with the minced meat, and how the intestine was filled by means of a spout to make the sausages. We fried the sausage meat and ate it with sauerkraut for supper that evening. But the Gelderland sausages had to be thoroughly dried first, so we hung them over a stick tied to the ceiling with string. Everyone who came into the room began to laugh when they caught a glimpse of the row of sausages on show. They looked terribly funny. The room was in a glorious mess. Mr. Van Daan was wearing one of his wife's aprons swathed around his substantial person. He looked fatter than he is, and was busy with the meat. Hands smothered in blood, red-faced, and the soiled apron made him look like a butcher. Mrs. Van Daan was trying to do everything at once, learning Dutch from a book, stirring the soup, watching the meat being done, sighing and complaining about her injured rib. That's what happens to elderly ladies who do such idiotic exercises to reduce their large behinds. Dussel had inflammation in one eye and was bathing it with chamomile tea by the fire. Pim, who was sitting on a chair in a beam of sunlight that shone through the window, kept being pushed from one side to the other. In addition, I think his rheumatism was bothering him because he sat rather hunched up with a miserable look on his face, watching Mr. Van Daan at work. He looked exactly like some shriveled-up old man from an old people's home. Peter was doing acrobatics round the room with his cat. Mummy, Margot, and I were peeling potatoes, and, of course, all of us were doing everything wrong because we were so busy watching Mr. Van Daan. Dussel had opened his dental practice. For the fun of it, I must just tell you about his first patient. Mummy was ironing, and Mrs. Van Daan was the first to face the ordeal. She went and sat on a chair in the middle of the room. Dussel began to unpack his case in an awfully important way, asking for some eau de cologne as a disinfectant, and Vaseline to take the place of wax. He looked in Mrs. Van Daan's mouth and found 2 teeth which, when touched, just made her crumple up as if she was going to pass out, uttering incoherent cries of pain. After a lengthy examination in Mrs. Van Daan's case, lasting in actual fact not more than 2 minutes, Dussel began to scrape away at one of the holes. But no fear, it was out of the question. The patient flung her arms and legs about wildly in all directions until at one point Mr. Dussel let go of the scraper, and that remained stuck in Mrs. Van Daan's tooth. Then the fat was really in the fire, and that means then it really got into a mess. She cried, as far as possible with such an instrument in one's mouth, tried to pull the thing out of her mouth, and only succeeded in pushing it further. Mr. Dussel stood with his hands against his side, calmly watching the little comedy. The rest of the audience lost all control and roared with laughter. It was rotten of us, because I, for one, am quite sure that I should have screamed even louder. After much turning, kicking, screaming, and calling out, she got the instrument free at last, and Mr. Dussel went on with his work as if nothing had happened. This he did so quickly that Mrs. Van Daan didn't have much time to start any fresh tricks. but he never had so much help in all his life before. 2 assistants are pretty useful. Van Daan and I performed our duties well. The whole scene looked like a picture from the Middle Ages entitled A Quack at Work. A quack is a person who doesn't know what they're doing. Like somebody might say a doctor is a quack. That means they're not a good doctor, okay? Not like a duck quack. In the meantime, however, the patient hadn't much patience. She had to keep an eye on her soup and her meal. One thing is certain, Mrs. Van Daan won't be in such hurry to allow herself to be treated again. Yours, Annie. Sunday the 13th of December, 1942. Dear Kitty, I'm sitting cozily in the main office looking outside through a slit in the curtain. It is dusk, but still just light enough to write to you. It is a very queer or odd sight as I watch the people walking by. It just looks just as if they were all in a terrible hurry and nearly trip over their own toes. With cyclists, now one simply can't keep pace with their speed. I can't even see what sort of person is riding on the machine. The people in this neighborhood don't look very attractive. The children especially are so dirty you wouldn't want to touch them with a barge pole. Okay, so a barge pole would be like a pole you would stick down in the water when you're on a barge and push to make your barge, which is like a boat, go along in the water. So a really long pole. Real slum kids with runny noses. I can hardly understand a word they say. Yesterday afternoon, Margot and I were having a bath here, and I said, suppose we were to take the children who are walking past one by one, hoist them up with a fishing rod, give them each a bath, wash and mend their clothes, and then let them go again. Then, Margot interrupted me. By tomorrow they would look just as filthy and ragged as before. But I'm just talking nonsense. Besides, there are other things to see. Cars, boats, and rain. I particularly like the screech of the trams as they go by. There is no more variety in our thoughts than there is for ourselves. They go round and round like a roundabout, from Jews to food, and from food to politics. By the way, talking of Jews, I saw 2 Jews through the curtain yesterday. I could hardly believe my eyes. It was a horrible feeling, just as if I'd betrayed them and was now watching them in their misery. There is a houseboat immediately opposite where a bargeman lives with his family. He has a small yapping dog. We only know the little dog by his bark and his tail, which we can see when he runs around the deck. Ugh! Now it's started to rain, and most of the people are hidden under umbrellas. I see nothing but raincoats and occasionally the back of someone's hat. Really, I don't need to see more. I'm gradually getting to know all the women at a glance. Blown out with potatoes, wearing a red or green coat, trodden down heels, and with a bag under their arms. Their faces either look grim or kind, depending on their husband's dispositions. Yours, Annie. Tuesday, the 22nd of December, 1942. Dear Kitty, the secret annex has heard the joyful news that each person will receive an extra quarter of a pound of butter for Christmas. It says half a pound in the newspaper, but that's only for the lucky mortals who get their ration books from the government, not for Jews who have gone into hiding, who can only afford to buy 4 illegal ration books instead of 8. We are all going to bake something with our butter. I made some biscuits, and 2 cakes this morning. Everyone is very busy upstairs, and Mummy has told me that I must not go up there to work or read until the household jobs are done. Mrs. Van Daan is in bed with her bruised rib, complains the whole day long, allows herself to be given fresh dressings all the time, and isn't satisfied with anything. I shall be glad when she's on her feet again and tidies up her own things, because I must say this for her. She's exceptionally industrious and tidy, all the while she is healthy in mind and body. She is cheerful, too. Just as if I didn't hear enough shh, shh during the day for making too much noise, my gentleman bedroom companion now repeatedly calls out shh, shh to me at night, too. According to him, I am not even allowed to turn over. I refuse to take the slightest notice of him, and shall go shh, shh back at him the next time. Can you imagine being the age this girl is and having to share a bedroom with someone who's not your friend or relative, but someone who just moved into this hiding place to live with the group. That wouldn't be really fun, would it? You'd rather share a bedroom with a sister or a cousin. I mean, girls would, or a brother or a cousin or some family member or friend. He makes me furious on Sundays especially when he turns the light out or on early to do his exercises. It seems to take simply hours while I, poor tormented creature, feel the chairs which are placed at the head of my bed to lengthen it slide backwards and forwards continually under my sleepy head. When he has ended with a couple of violent arm-waving exercises to loosen his muscles, his lordship begins his toilet. That means he's getting dressed. His pants are hanging up, so to and fro he must go to collect them. But he forgets his tie, which is lying on the table. Therefore, once more he pushes and bumps past the chairs to get it. But I won't bore you any longer with this on the subject of old men. It won't make things any better, and all my plans of revenge, such as disconnecting the lamp, shutting the door, hiding his clothes, must be abandoned in order to keep the peace. Oh, I'm becoming so sensible. One must apply one's reason to everything here, learning to obey, to hold your tongue, to help, to be good, to give in, and I don't know what else. I'm afraid I shall use up all my brains too quickly, and I haven't got so very many. Then I shall not have any left for when the war is over. Yours, Annie. Wednesday, January the 13th, 1943. Dear Kitty, everything has upset me this morning, so I wasn't able to finish a single thing properly. It is terrible outside. Day and night, more of those poor miserable people are being dragged off with nothing but a rucksack and a little money. On the way, they are deprived even of these possessions. Families are torn apart, the men, women, and children all being separated. Children coming home from school find that their parents have disappeared. Women return from shopping to find their homes shut up and their families gone. The Dutch people are anxious too. Their sons are being sent to Germany. Everyone is afraid. And every night, hundreds of planes fly over Holland and go to German towns where the earth is plowed up by their bombs. And every hour, hundreds and thousands of people are killed in Russia and Africa. No one is able to keep out of it. The whole globe is waging war, and although it is going better for the Allies, the end is not yet in sight. And as for us, we are fortunate. Yes, we are luckier than millions of people. It is quiet and safe here, and we are, so to speak, living on capital. We are even so selfish as to talk about after the war. Brightens up the thought of having new clothes and new shoes, whereas we really ought to save every penny to help other people and save what is left from the wreckage after the war. The children here run about in just a thin blouse and clogs. Clogs are like wooden shoes, okay? No coat, no hat, no stockings, and no one helps them. Their tummies are empty. They chew on an old carrot to stay or to stop the pangs of hunger. Go from their cold homes out into the cold street, and when they get to school, find themselves in an even colder classroom. Yes, it has even got so bad in Holland that countless children stop the passerby and beg for a piece of bread. I could go on for hours about all the suffering the war has brought, but then I would only make myself more dejected. There is nothing we can do but wait as calmly as we can till the misery comes to an end. Jews and Christians wait. The whole world waits, and there are many who wait for death. Yours, Annie. Saturday, January the 30th, 1943. Dear Kitty, I'm boiling with rage, and yet I mustn't show it. I'd like to stamp my feet, scream, give Mummy a good shaking, cry, and I don't know what else, because of the horrible words, mocking looks, and accusations which are leveled at me repeatedly every day and find their mark like shafts from a tightly strung bow, and which are just as hard to draw from my body. I would like to shout to Margot, Van Daan, Dussel, and Daddy too, leave me in peace. Let me sleep one night at least without my pillow being wet with tears. my eyes burning and my head throbbing. Let me get away from it all, preferably away from the world. But I can't do that. They mustn't know my despair. I can't let them see the wounds which they have caused. I couldn't bear their sympathy and their kind-hearted jokes. It would only make me want to scream all the more. If I talk, everyone thinks I'm showing off. When I'm silent, they think I'm ridiculous, rude if I answer, sly if I get a good idea, lazy if I'm tired, selfish if I eat a mouthful more than I should, stupid, cowardly, crafty, etc., etc. The whole day long I hear nothing else but that I am the insufferable baby, and although I laugh about it and pretend not to take any notice, I do mind. I would like to ask God to give me a different nature so that I didn't put everyone's back up, but that can't be done. I've got the nature that has been given to me, and I'm sure it can't be bad. I do my very best to please everybody, far more than they'd ever guess. I try to laugh it all off because I don't want to let them see my trouble. More than once, after a whole string of undeserved rebukes, I have flared up at Mummy. I don't care what you say anyhow. Leave me alone. I'm a hopeless case anyway. Naturally, I was then told I was rude and was virtually ignored for 2 days, and then all at once it was quite forgotten and I was treated like everyone else again. It is impossible for me to be all sugar one day and spit venom the next. I'd rather choose the golden mean, which is not so golden, keep my thoughts to myself, and try for once to just be as disdainful to them as they are to me. Oh, if only I could. Yours, Annie. February the 5th, February 1943. Dear Kitty, I haven't written anything about our rows for a long time. There still isn't any change. That means their arguments. The discord long accepted by us struck Mr. Dussel as calamity at first. But he is getting used to it now and tries not to think about it. Margaret and Peter aren't a bit what you would call young. They are both so staid and quiet. So she's meaning they're quiet for their age maybe and not rowdy teenagers. I show up terribly against them and am always hearing, you don't find Margaret and Peter doing that. Why don't you follow their example? I simply loathe it. And loathe means you really, really dislike something. I might tell you I don't want to be in the least like Margaret. She is much too soft and passive for my liking and allows everyone to talk her around and gives in about everything. I want to be a stronger character, but I keep such ideas to myself. They would only laugh at me if I came along with this as an example of my attitude. The atmosphere at table is usually strained, though luckily the outbursts are sometimes checked by the soup eaters. The soup eaters are the people from the office who come in and are served with a cup of soup. This afternoon, Mr. Van Don was talking about Margot eating so little again. I suppose you do it to keep slim, he added, teasing her. Mummy, who always defends Margot, said loudly, I can't bear your stupid chatter any longer. Mr. Van Daan turned scarlet, looked straight in front of him, and said nothing. We often laugh about things. Just recently, Mrs. Van Daan came out with some perfect nonsense. She was recalling the past, how well she and her father got on together and what a flirt she was. And do you know, she went on, if a man gets a bit aggressive, my father used to say, then you must say to him, Mr. So-and-so, remember, I am a lady, and he will know what you mean. We thought that was a good joke and burst out laughing. Peter, too, although usually so quiet, sometimes gives cause for mirth. He is blessed with a passion for foreign words, although he does not always know their meaning. One afternoon, we couldn't go to the laboratory because there were visitors in the office. However, Peter had to pay an urgent call, so he didn't pull the plug. He put up a notice on the laboratory door to warn us with SVP gas on it. Of course he meant to put beware of gas, but he thought the other looked more genteel. He hadn't got the faintest notion it meant, if you please. Yours, Annie. Saturday, February the 27th, 1943. Dear Kitty, Pim is expecting the invasion any day. Churchill, and he was a leader in England at this time, has had pneumonia but is improving slowly. The freedom-loving Gandhi of India is holding his umpteenth fast. Mrs. Von Don claims to be fatalistic. But who is the most scared when the guns go off? No one else but Petronella. Hink brought a copy of the bishop's letter to churchgoers for us to read. It was fine and inspiring. Do not rest, people of the Netherlands. Everyone is fighting with his own weapons to free the country, the people, and their religion. Give help, be generous, and do not dismay, is what they cry from the pulpit just like that. Will it help? It won't help the people of our religion, because remember, they were of the Jewish religion. You'd never guess what has happened to us now. The owner of these premises has sold the house without informing Krahler and Kupus. One morning, the new owner arrived with an architect to have a look at the house. Luckily, Mr. Kupus was present and showed the gentleman everything except the secret annex. He professed to have forgotten the key of the communicating door. The new owner didn't inquire any further. It will be all right as long as he doesn't come back and want to see the secret annex, because then it won't look too good for us. Daddy has emptied a card index box for Margaret and me and put cards in it. It is to be a book card system. Then we both write down the books which we have read, who they are by, etc. I have procured another little notebook for foreign words. Lastly, Mummy and I have been getting on better together, but we still never confide in each other. Margot is more catty than ever, and Daddy has got something he is keeping to himself, but he remains the same darling. New butter and margarine rationing at table. Each person has their little bit of fat put on their plate. In my opinion, the Van Dons didn't divide it all fairly. However, my parents are much too afraid of a row to say, that means a fight, to say anything about it. Kitty, I think you should always give people like them tit for tat. That means when they're ugly, you need to be ugly back, is what she's saying. Yours, Annie. I'm going to try to squeeze in one more reading, so I hope we don't get cut off in the middle of it. Wednesday, the 10th of March, 1943. Dear Kitty, we had a short circuit last evening, and on top of that, the guns kept banging away all the time. I still haven't gotten over my fear of everything connected with shooting and planes, and I creep into Daddy's bed nearly every night for comfort. I know this is very childish, but you don't know what it is like. The AA guns roar so loudly that you can't hear yourself speak. Mrs. Van Don, the fatalist, was nearly crying and said in a very timid little voice, "Oh, it is so unpleasant. Oh, they are shooting so hard," by which she really means, "I am so frightened." It didn't seem nearly so bad by candlelight as in the dark. I was shivering just as if I had a temperature and begged Daddy to light the candle again. He was relentless. The light remained off. Suddenly, there was a burst of machine gun fire, and that is 10 times worse than guns. Mummy jumped out of bed, and to Pim's annoyance, lit the candle. When he complained, her answer was firm. After all, Annie's not exactly a veteran soldier, and that was the end of it. Have I already told you about Mrs. Van Don's other fears? I don't think so. If I am to keep you informed of all that happened in the secret annex, you must know about this too. One night, Mrs. Van Don thought she heard burglars in the attic. She heard loud footsteps and was so frightened that she woke her husband. Just at that moment, the burglars disappeared, and the only sounds that Mr. Van Don could hear were the heartbeats of the frightened fatalist herself. "Oh, Pooty," might be Putty, Mr. Van Dan's nickname, "they are sure to have taken the sausages and all our peas and beans. And Peter, I wonder if he is still safely in bed. They certainly won't have stolen Peter. Listen, don't worry and let me go to sleep." But nothing came of that. Mrs. Van Don was far too nervous to sleep another wink. A few nights after that, the whole Van Don family was woken by ghost-like sounds. Peter went to the attic with a torch and scamper. What do you think it was running away? A swarm of enormous rats. When we knew who the thieves were, we let Moochie sleep in the attic, and the uninvited guests didn't come back again, at least not during the night. Peter went up to the loft a couple of evenings ago to fetch some old newspapers. He had to hold the trap door firmly to get down the steps. He put his hand down without looking and went tumbling down the ladder from the sudden shock and pain. Without knowing it, he had put his hand on a large rat, and it had bitten him hard. By the time he reached us, as white as a sheet and with his knees knocking, the blood had soaked through his pajamas. And no wonder, it's not very pleasant to stroke a large rat, and to get bitten in the bargain is really dreadful. Yours, Annie. Bless her heart, how did they survive these things? All right, I'm going to stop here, and we'll start for Tuesday on page 70. Thank you.